This is the Planetary Potential Podcast for those who are eager to explore entrepreneurship, innovation, and cross-cultural communication in exciting and interesting places around the world. And now, here's your host, Andrew P. Rowan.
Welcome to episode 13 of season 1. What is the future of social enterprises and impact investing in Latin America? This week, I sit down with Javier Gondo, portfolio manager for the Andean region at NESsT, a social enterprise consultancy and impact investor that has invested more than $18 million and has supported more than 180 social enterprises since 1997. In our interview, Javier shares his views on the opportunities and challenges of working with social enterprises, why there's been increased interest in impact investing in recent years, and some metrics used to gauge impact. An important reminder that opinions shared in this episode are those of individual guests. For more information, please visit www.andrewprowan.com/disclosures. Javier and I also discuss what it's like being part of the Japanese diaspora in Peru via one of the country's great migration waves, his experience studying in New York City, and what it was like living through Hurricane Sandy in 2012. Let's get started. With me is Javier Gondo. He is the portfolio manager of the Andean region here at NESsT. We are at the NESsT office in Lima, Peru. Welcome, Javier.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to get to know more people in the startup scenery from all over the world.
So can you talk a bit about NESsT in general? I know it's an organization that's been around for about 20 years. And then specifically about your role here as a portfolio manager of the Andean region.
Yes. Globally, NESsT has been around 20 years. Particularly in Peru, it's a little bit more than 12 years, and it has had quite an evolution around these 12 years. In this time, we have always focused on working with startups and entrepreneurs, but social entrepreneurs focused on generating different types of impact. Initially, impact on all over the place, so different types of impacts from access to water, sewage, electricity. And now we have, in the past 5 years, we decided to focus on two specific types of impacts, which are job generation and income improvement. Both of them focused on vulnerable communities.
Okay, so job generation and income improvement, focusing on vulnerable communities. Does that mean communities outside of Lima?
Yeah, so it's all over. Well, it's in the Andean region. Initially working in Peru, so the whole country, and the Andean focus was started around 3 years ago.
Okay, so for the Andean region, which countries are those specifically?
So technically, we look at Peru. Given that we started here in these 12 years, but also Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, and we also are open to checking opportunities in Chile and Argentina. But more actively, we're between Colombia and Peru.
I see. So how did you decide to focus on these two pillars then?
The two types of impacts.
Yeah,
I think that from the experience before, the focus was chosen given that, and this is my own guess from the experience working with the co-founders, and I feel that it's because from there, those two types of impacts is kind of the starting point where the social enterprises can also develop the other types of impacts. So generating an income stream, where if it's through a job or by generating an economic activity to the vulnerable communities, it provides them with the income that can also facilitate accessing these other types of things, education, healthcare, and other types of things. So that's my guess from that.
So in a way, it's sort of like the foundational impact, right? And then once you're able to address those needs, you can then spread out beyond that initial impact.
Yes, and also because the kind of the philosophy of the entrepreneurs they can be generating that, but given that they focus a lot on improving the quality of life of those communities, that's one of their main goals. They start by providing this income stream. But additionally, given that they worry and they are they care about the communities, they also start, given the connection, they start providing them with these other types of services, for example.
So in terms of measuring impact, is it as simple as number of jobs created and percentage of income increase, or does it get a bit more detailed than that?
Yeah. So the initial stage is that it's as simple as that. Learning about how many jobs they're creating, or how many like suppliers or partners they are including within the value chain of the company. But also measuring, also the amount of income that is being generated to them, what percentage of this represents from their whole family income, but also starting to evaluate, and this depends on every company. If the company also is very focused on generating a positive environmental impact, we would also seek for the right indicators for measuring that. Also, regarding the quality of life of these communities, we would also go and visit some of the different communities every year and see what their situation is, comparing it to before, not only on income but also services that they are accessing. If they also are accessing, for example, the financial system or healthcare, if the company also provides them with some sort of training, we also measure that those indicators.
So it's a bit more holistic than from a quality of life point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. And so can you share some examples about, for example, if you have case studies, what has been the average job creation or income increase?
Yeah, so I think that actually depends on the company. It varies because we have worked, even though we focus on an early stage of the social enterprises, but we have had companies starting and entering the portfolio with as low as $15,000 of annual revenues, to companies that have $600,000 on revenue. So still in a small size.
Yeah.
But you can see a big difference between those.
Sure.
And you can see in the smaller cases, you could be working with 12 families, and the income improvement as a percentage would be around 70% increase. And in the case of these larger companies, it would be around 100 different jobs created, or working with 100 different people connected within the value chain, and the percentage increase there was around 40%, mainly because of the stage, or maybe the area where they are focused. That's why the big difference between a 70% increase and a 30% increase. Right. Monetarily, in monetary terms, I would say would be pretty similar, around an increase of 100,000. Oh, sorry. $1,000 per month.
Yeah, that's an important point to make, that the context matters, right? Between a 70% increase from a $15,000 starting point versus a 40% increase from a $600,000 starting point. Can you talk a bit about what is the regulation like for social enterprises in the region? So not just here in Peru, but in Colombia. Is it more or less the same, or are there differences when you are working across countries?
Yeah, so I would say between Colombia and Peru, it's pretty similar. So it's still very nascent, very basic. Whereas in countries like Argentina, they already have a figure, a legal structure, a legal figure of social enterprise. We have here in Colombia the V certificate, which is not like within the law structure, but it provides a certain level of certification that the companies are focused on generating one type of impact, or at least one.
Is that an industry certification, or is that self-certification?
So there's this organization called, so the certification is being B Corp.
Okay.
and this is an international organization who provides the certification. So they have a team here that is focused on doing the due diligence. Like anyone can fill the survey that they have.
Yeah.
It's a very long but very detailed survey where you can actually see the different types of impacts and see how much you are actually focusing or really clear on how to generate that impact. But then the certification actually applies when you fill the survey, but you have an interaction with the team. They do the due diligence and verify that you're actually doing what you say you're doing. So it is actually a pretty long process. But I think that it's pretty good and very detailed, due diligence process.
So that seems to be the standard here in Peru and
Yeah.
Colombia currently.
And particularly in Peru, there is currently in the Congress, they're discussing to create a figure of an actual V Corp. So a social enterprise within the legal structure, we have the sociedades anónimas, empresas de responsabilidad limitada, but within this, we would have a sociedad anónima, but with a social benefit purpose. So that's what they're discussing right now, and this would be mainly to have just a label. So to have an actual regulation and an ID that tells that the company wants to have this social purpose. If there would be any benefit, not right now, but at least it's a good starting point to have like the group of companies that have this type of characteristic, have them separated.
How open is that legislative process here? For example, if you wanted to submit what NEST believes should be the definition of a social enterprise, would legislators here be open to receiving that?
Well, entering into politics, it's quite complicated here. There have been a lot of different scandals, from corruption and to the public. The I don't know how to say it, but there's a lot of discomfort from the public in general on how the government is being managed between presidents, but also in the Congress. So it's a tough tough topic, but I think that in general at least for entering a proposal for the Congress, it's not that it's easy, but there are channels to contact some of the congressmen, there's an association for entrepreneurs here, and one of the main purpose of this association is actually that, to have that communication with different representatives in the Congress, so that the message from the organizations can actually flow towards them. It's still not easy, because it's one thing to get the message across to one group, and then when it goes to the Congress, if it gets to as an actual proposal, it's very difficult to have all the different parties aligned, because here there are a lot of different parties. They're all after their own purposes.
Sure.
So even if they are aligned with the objective that you have, they might think of something that they might want in the future to actually provide that approval. So it's a very complicated process. But I think that this proposal that has been sent was done very orderly. I don't know what the legislation or end product would be, but at least it's a good starting point, and it's also making a positive externality of making people aware of social enterprises.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the positive things that are actually happening there.
Yeah, so I was thinking the same thing. If the final definition in this bill is aligned with NEST definition, then that's great in terms of potential intake for your portfolio, or even having folks realize that they're actually running a social enterprise, which I'm going to ask you now, does that happen in a sense where you have to convince certain companies that they are in fact a social enterprise, but they just look at it as we're just running a business?
Yeah. Well, I think that on that sense, I think it's a little bit of both things. That yes, we have like two types of social entrepreneurs here. Well, technically three types. But the main two are, well, the ones that are really focused on, the ones that started their business to actually generate that impact. And then you also have, which is the most common. And then the second most important is the ones that you mentioned, the ones who have a business, and they because of their, I don't know if it's their values or how they think about a business, they already incorporate all these different practices that you would say, oh, they're actually valuing the hard work from their workers. They're also valuing a lot the work from their suppliers or their distributors. So they already incorporate those, let's say, like fair prices or like equality or equal rights and benefits to the different stages of the value chain. So I think that's an important group also. In the portfolio at NEST, we have a few of them that actually are like that they were already incorporating all this, and we ran into them, we met them, learned more about their companies, and really actually saw that they were an actual social enterprise, and actually told them, well, there's this concept, and they realized that they're a social enterprise. And on that sense, I would say, I don't know if like either of those types of entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs is better, because at least in my point of view, eventually, like social enterprises or impact investing, there would be a moment in time where it would just be enterprises or companies and investing, because the companies would already, any company would already be incorporating all these different values and processes. That's one thing that I hope that would happen eventually, but I think that's where we're going to.
This convergence between social enterprises and impact driven businesses, let's say, that are going to be combined into more or less the same type of business in the future, do you think that's more influenced by the investment side that is saying these are the requirements that we're going to have in order to make an investment in your types of companies, which value, of course, the marketplace, the labor market, the community, balancing those needs and dispersing those benefits equitably? Or is it coming from the business side, the private sector itself, saying, okay, like doing good is good for business, and we want to, of course, increase our margins, and these are some of the ways that we can do that?
Uh, that's a tough one, because I think that it's a little bit of both. And also, well, at least here in Latin America, I would say it's both, and also a third one, because so there are a couple of organizations like NEST. A lot of them have been, foreign, investing in the region, especially in Peru. That it's there are a lot of different foundations, like family foundations, but focused in very specific types of impact. For example, a family that has had, like a Wati family here in Peru, has had a relative who suffers of a specific type of disease. So they decided to start this family foundation focused on research on that type of disease, or other specific activities like poverty alleviation because of I don't know, the disaster that recently happened, for example, in Loreto, the earthquake. So it has been like really specific. It has been a lot of foreign organizations that have brought these initiatives of supporting different types of impacts. and most of it comes with a monetary investment. So that's one of the things that have actually promoted it. But I think that this wouldn't have been really useful if there weren't already organizations and companies, doing the right work, working with different communities, and maybe not to order, but or structured, but actually doing the job generation, the income improvement, the impact generation, um, but also dealing with the business in a proper way.
Hmm.
And then I would say that the third kind of factor is actually a foreign trend, like in the US or in Europe, having these large companies, like, I don't know, in the CPG sector, that actually value organic farming, or also fair prices,
Mhm.
or avoiding child work. That those types of different activities that actually make the country say, or the different companies say, oh, these practices are the ones that, well, these are the trends that are going to happen, and this is what companies outside are going to value. So we need to incorporate them in our own institutions, our own companies, even if you are a large corporation or a small enterprise. So I think that's also a big factor making this change here in the region.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are a series of factors, and it's not just one that you can point to and say this accounts for the large shift that is happening.
Mhm.
When do you see this time frame for these companies, whether they're socially driven or they're standard profit companies? When do you see them all kind of converging together in the future?
So I think it's a tough answer, because at least here in well, considering between Peru and Colombia,
Hmm.
especially in Peru, I think we're a little bit less advanced. I think that Colombia has done a lot of work towards this type of companies,
Yeah.
of incorporating this type of impact, but probably because of their own reality, given the recent civil war between the government and the guerrilla,
In Colombia.
in Colombia.
So FARC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there has been a peace treaty signed, and there's a big migration from the military. The military segment is actually reincorporating to the regular day-to-day work. So there has been a lot of different initiatives supporting this migration, this change from military to regular business.
Are you talking about the Colombian military or are you talking about the guerrilla forces?
Both.
Okay.
Actually, it's
So,
both.
so there's been a transition then from both the Colombian military and from the guerrilla forces towards civilian life.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of different initiatives providing them with capital, or also training, so that they would start working in different industries, whether if it's farming, or there has been also initiatives on the hospitality sector, because there's a big demand. But between the military forces and guerrilla forces, um, it's not that they have the skills, or they haven't been trained for that. So there are initiatives that are training them so that they can connect with hotels, restaurants, and start working there. So I think that reality has actually made them like speed up on this process, and internalizing these types of initiatives. Here, there's also a big wave of social enterprises in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're a little bit behind, because even companies and the investors, it's not that there are too many impact investors here, but there's a good start in the general financial system, because there's this program called the Responsible Investment Program, the PRI in Spanish. And it's just starting to invest in public companies that have the stocks well traded, and who implement the ESG policies. That's at least a more mainstream situation here in Peru, but it's a good start.
ESG being environmental, social, and governance, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
governance. Yeah.
And the name of the PRI in Spanish, please?
Well, I have my doubts on the PBN program. So it would be Programa so it would be PIR, Programa de Inversión Responsable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it's a regional movement.
Regional in the sense that it's across regions in Peru
In
or
Latin America.
in Latin America.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's a multilateral initiative.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to talk about the transition from military to civilian for the Colombia environment. Does NESsT see that as an opportunity to add value to that process somehow?
Yeah. So, well, in the case of Colombia, we have been having interactions and activities for around 2 years. So we have seen some of the activities going on, but since we're starting there, we're actually seeing a little bit of everything regarding these two types of impacts: job generation and income improvement, but in different sectors. We do see a big opportunity in this trend that we have been talking about, especially in the different organizations and institutions that provide this type of training. We do see an opportunity to support this type of social enterprises, but in those cases, we feel that there are a lot of different initiatives, not a lot of different initiatives, but a big initiative from the government side to provide this type of training. Can't remember the name of the organization. It's an institute, a public institute that provides training, like technical training, or also within this hospitality sector. Which is a really high quality institute. They provide really good education and at very affordable prices. So I think that is a really good and very effective initiative that Colombia has. So in that sense, we feel that that's like well covered, but there are also other organizations that could also appear, maybe in other sectors also, where we would see opportunities to support.
And of course, well, it sounds like the ideal scenario would be to support a company founded by one of these transitioning members, right? From military or from guerrilla to civilian, and then have them start their own company, which then could be part of the NESsT portfolio at some point in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think that those are kind of the best cases of the work that we do, where the actual communities can develop themselves on their own. Like, we can provide some support, but then it's their show, and they want it to be their show because they between feeling empowered and also having all the skills, they can develop their own organizations, their own communities, and I think that's what we are aiming to do in every case. It's not that it will happen in every case, but we hope that it can happen.
Sure. Curious what your thoughts are on the Venezuelan migration crisis, because to date, I believe over 3 million Venezuelans have emigrated from Venezuela. Of course, there are a significant number of them here in Peru. It's hard not to notice them, whether they are in restaurants or they are at traffic lights trying to sell something. But I understand in Colombia, there are even more Venezuelans there.
Oh, really?
Than here.
I actually haven't realized that, but
and what I don't see in particular is clear on-ramps for them to integrate better into, for example, Peruvian society. I can't speak to the context in Colombia, but here, having spoken to Venezuelans, some who are here working formally and some who are trying to make ends meet by selling gum on the street, it seems that the support is kind of uneven, I'd say. And then the question is, okay, you have this pool of talent, right? Of course, not all are professionals, but they're all in search of a better life, having left Venezuela. What do you do with all this human capital, right?
Yeah. So, Well, and this is more speaking as Javier, well, the person, but I do feel that, well, there's some initiatives that have started supporting specifically the formalization of Venezuelan immigrants. It's not that there are too many initiatives. But I think it's also because, in general, Peru, well, at least speaking about Peru, but I feel that there's still a lot of work just for the like work. There's a lot of work to do, uh, just for the Peruvian community that, well, the low income communities. So that's where the kind of the complexity of the problem arises, because there are still a lot of very poor people in, well, in every city.
There are a
in
lot of
Peru.
unmet needs still.
Yeah. So I feel that that's a big complication of generating additional or more initiatives like the ones I'm mentioning on supporting Venezuelan immigrants.
Yeah.
That's why I feel that it's uneven. Um, Also, I think that there's a big gap on the regulation, which actually, it's in the end, it's the companies that take advantage of this complexity of the, well, Venezuelan immigrants, trying to formalize, well, trying to get a formal job. They try to, well, in the end, they take advantage of this complexity, to provide them with, a much lower payment and not a formal contract.
Yeah.
But I think that there are organizations that actually want to do the right things, and they value the skills that they have, because, like you mentioned, there are very, very and highly skilled Venezuelan immigrants living here in Peru, and I think that there's a big opportunity. Uh, Maybe not too much on like the direct work with them in the sense of job generation for them, but maybe supporting them, like a little bit what we were saying before, of empowering them so that they can start their own businesses, and with that they can actually, uh, well, determine the rules of working with others. So by supporting them on generating the social enterprises or enterprises in general or companies in general, they can say, oh, but we know these people, we know them from Venezuela, so we know that they are good at work. Um, they also hire, and they also would have a component of job generation for Peruvian citizens. So it's a little bit less like impactful towards the public, the general public, of supporting those type of initiatives, because you would have, okay, more like equal rights and job rights for the Venezuelan immigrants, but also job generation for Peruvian citizens. So I think it can be an interesting approach to support this situation. It's terrible, the things that happen in Venezuela as a country, because no country should actually have to, well, experience that type of situation, having really limited resources, not knowing really, well, if they would have anything to eat, not because they cannot afford it, but because there's just nothing. But and I think that's part of the source of the problem. Like there should be something to actually change the situation so that they wouldn't have to live these experiences here in Peru of being, I don't know, well, having being paid so little and not having all these different rights, just because in their countries where they had an actual job, they had really good experience and training, and would have a really good job there. I think this is more of a philosophical um, kind of, well.
So yeah, on principles, I agree with you. However, the situation is that there are Venezuelans here now. Of course, not all will stay. Some are in transit to Chile. Some are in transit to Argentina. But for the ones who want to make Peru their home, for better for worse, I don't really see many opportunities for them, or I don't see pathways for them to, for example, like you said, start a company, hire Venezuelans, hire Peruvians. It seems to me that, of course, if they are starting companies, the more successful ones would directly or indirectly benefit the Peruvian economy at some point. So that's why I'm having a bit of trouble trying to understand, why there isn't more support, at least for that, if it's not just outright aid, which I think, your point is certainly fair. And I have heard this point from other Peruvians as well, in the sense that, and to a certain extent, if you can't take care of your own people, right, how can you be expected to care for others? And I do see that it would be politically inconvenient also from the policy perspective to do that. That's not a comment on whether it's right or wrong or the other case. But is NEST, or are you interested in exploring opportunities around this? Because to me, it seems like it's overlooked.
Yeah. So in that sense, I don't think that there's a specific focus on that. I feel that it's actually getting to know more and more of different initiatives going on here, and if they match the criteria on type of impact, whether they are if they are Peruvian or if they are Venezuelan or other nationalities, we would support. I don't think that there is a specific focus or program that is being developed right now. Um, at least in the companies from the portfolio, you would see that there are Venezuelans joining the teams, where if it's part of the actual work or part of the value chain from the companies. So in that sense, we see that there are opportunities, but we see that it's part of the whole deal of supporting the different social enterprises in Peru. At least I don't think that there is a specific focus from our co-founders of making a specific program for that.
I see. Last week, I read in Startups Without Borders about a migrant VC fund that was created in Italy for specifically migrants. I don't know if that model is the right one for Peru or Latin America, but I think we both can agree that Latin America is being transformed at the moment by this migration from Venezuela of Venezuelans. Although interesting to note that it is not the first time that there have been migration of people from other countries. Of course, China, Japan, and Spain, at least those. And I understand that your family came in one of these migration waves. Can you talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah, so my grandparents from my father's side and my great grandparents from my mother's side are Japanese. Well, were Japanese. And they migrated here to Peru. Well, first to Cañete, which is a little bit north of Lima City, around 90 years ago. Around so. And from there they migrated to Cañete. It started there with different farms, but in the end, along the history of the world, World War II, the situations got complicated for the community, and most of them lost their different properties and different rights at that point. So there was a kind of a second wave of migration, but a shorter one from Cañete to Lima. A lot of the different Japanese immigrants actually migrated from Cañete to Lima to start working in the farms here or in the stores, or if they would have some savings, liquid savings, they would start their own shops and try to sell different small things. So that was actually the story of both sides of my family. Migrated to Lima, and after a lot of hard work, they sent their own kids to the university, and then developing their own businesses. And I'm lucky enough that at least in my case, I didn't have to to have that sort of difficulties. But I would say in the cultural side, it's kind of complex having that background on one side, because my parents also like educated me a little bit on the Oriental culture. Used to have some Japanese classes, but very when I was very small, um, or very young, and then also, well, not being in an actual Japanese school, it was more, well, first in a North American school, and then more of a British school. So interacting with Peruvians, so I have a mix between the Japanese culture and also being Peruvian. I identify myself as Peruvian, well, mostly as a Peruvian, but with Japanese background. We still keep some of the different customs and traditions.
Yeah.
But in the end, we feel we are Peru, and it's a difficult spot because for the actual Japanese from Japan, it's not that you are like related to them or you're like an outsider still. And for the actual Peruvian community, even though this has decreased a lot, but you're also not entirely Peruvian. So it's a bit of not knowing from where you're actually at. But in the end, I think it's also a little bit of luck of finding the right group of friends, of people in general, where you can actually find your place and actually develop yourself fully identified and having a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So have you met many people with a similar background as you who are ethnically Japanese, but culturally Peruvian?
Yeah, so in Peru there is a big population of Japanese descendants, but I would say that this doesn't only apply for the Japanese Peruvians or, um, but also Chinese Peruvians, Italian Peruvians, German Peruvians, and also from different parts of the world. I went to study for my graduate school in New York, and there I also met a lot of Japanese Americans or Chinese Americans, and I feel it happens also. It's similar to my situation here in Peru. They're Americans, but they have these traditions and culture behind them. So and they adapt to or identify to both of them.
So when you were in New York, then you were studying at NYU for your MBA, correct? And I assume you're meeting lots of new people, right? What were there interesting reactions when you told them you were Peruvian?
Yeah. So this is the funny part, because at first, the first couple of weeks when I would be meeting the almost 400 people in the class, some of them are Latin Americans, so, and from either Peru, Brazil, or different countries where there's some sort of Japanese Latin American communities. So it wouldn't be too much of a surprise. But for meeting my American classmates, it was a big surprise to all of them. Because at first they would just see me and my location. But then I would introduce myself as Javier. So that actually makes a big a first impact on, okay, that doesn't sound really Asian or Oriental. So this was actually, that happened to me a lot, having that surprise, but it was a good surprise.
I guess it depends if you're introduced as Javier or Mr. Gondo.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the case of the class, this was mainly as we would go for us on a first name basis. So,
but also I'm thinking that it could serve as a good differentiator in the sense that people remember, oh yeah, Javier, who is the connection with Peru and Japan somehow. I mean, it's impressionable, right? People recall that there's a mashup there somehow.
Yeah.
And wondering if that also is an advantage for you being top of mind of some people, right?
Well, I haven't seen it like that, but yep, I think that actually applies. I think that it has been the reason for actually some people remembering and actually remembering who I was having that relationship.
Hmm. During your time in New York, curious, what's the best memory that you have?
Uh, I think there were a lot. Well, between getting to know people from different backgrounds, from different nationalities, and keeping those relationships until now, that actually come in very handy, because I think that a lot of the different companies from that we work with here at NEST can actually develop some sort of partnership with those different regions. But I would say that a particular memory or group of memories would be during the Hurricane Sandy time, because
Okay.
it was I used to live
2011, right?
no, that was end of 2012. So the first
End
year
of
where I was
2012.
there.
Okay.
Um, and well, I think this was a good memory, apart from besides the different disasters that happened around that time. But I used to live at the dorms, the NYU dorms. And we had that part of the city didn't have any electricity, or very limited electricity at that time, and they had their own generator, but they would provide electricity to one floor, which was the open and shared spaces. So we would be like the different people from the graduate school. We would be hanging out even more. Like that actually pressured us to interact more with each other. So I think that around that time, that allowed me to meet much more closely with these other with multi friends, and I think something good came out of this tragedy.
Yeah. So in a way, the hurricane and of course the power outage forced you into the communal areas,
Yeah.
and you interacted more and formed closer bonds. So you found that silver lining, right?
Yeah.
But everything else was okay.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah. In that sense, it wouldn't last too long. Like, it was maybe 2 weeks that we'll be in that situation. And then things got well. That's one of the advantages there. Like here with these disasters, I'm not sure if you've heard about different disasters between earthquakes that happened a long time ago in Ica, for example. It's quite close to Lima, but reconstruction hasn't even finished yet, and it's been more than 10 years. Whereas in New York, particularly in that case, it actually got solved. Well, not solved completely, but it went pretty, like, it got better really quickly.
Yes, the repairs, the surface repairs were made, although the areas that were prone to flooding then are still prone to flooding now, and actually probably at more risk, and will continue to be at more risk as the sea levels rise in the future. So in New York, at one point, you made the decision to come back to Peru, right? Did you know you had wanted to work for NEST at that point? Or were you coming back here and kind of like keeping your options open and trying to, I mean, 2 years, I don't think there was, I don't know, maybe was there a reintegration process into Lima again?
Not really. So first, so when I went to do my MBA, I always had the plan to come back, because my main goal for the MBA was to, well, first, to deepen more my knowledge regarding investing, having more active role, because prior to the MBA, I was working in a private equity fund here in Peru, focused in middle market, large caps. Well, here. And but my main focus for the MBA was, well, to remain within that sector, so private investments, investing and supporting enterprises and corporations. But the main focus for me there was to learn more about how to support, well, early stage between startups and enterprises in general, because that's where I feel that the most need currently exists here in Latin America in general. There are not too many organizations that support this early stage, and there's the same amount of like large cap funds fighting for the same deals on the large caps.
Yeah.
Whereas the most opportunity would be to support early stages, develop them to a next stage, maybe a middle market, and from the middle market, support it to becoming large. And that's how this becomes, well, it benefits because the industry grows much more, and you don't have to be fighting with the same other funds, and limit also the amount of capital being invested in the country or the region. So that was my main focus. That's why also I love the idea of working studying in New York, having this startup scenery much more developed. And it was in a point in time where here in Peru, maybe the year before I went to New York in 2012. So in 2011, the movement kind of started here for the startups. Huayra started providing investments here in Peru. This is the accelerator for Telefónica,
Right.
this telecom company. But there weren't too many initiatives like even speaking about startups. Actually, we started the first startup weekend being organized here in Lima in 2011. Um, yeah, 2011, and that's why I wanted to move to New York, learn more about this, learn more about entrepreneurship, managing growing companies, and I think that's why I learned a lot about that with the MBA, and wanted to apply this to Peru. And when I came back, there wasn't too much of a readjustment because I would be speaking regularly with my family. So in that sense, there wasn't too much change. And even though I didn't stay too much in touch with my friends here in Peru, I would visit them when I would be here for the holidays. But still, until now, I work a lot. So it's not that I would see them too regularly, but there wasn't too much like readjustment. And meeting NESsT, it was I don't know, maybe destiny, fate, or just a curious thing that happened. But I did know NESsT from before, but I think that it was just luck that I entered LinkedIn, and within my feed, I actually saw the position for portfolio manager here in NESsT, and I applied, and the rest is history. Like I ended up, going through the process and starting working here, and it's been amazing, almost 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So it's sort of, I guess, destiny or serendipity. Different ways to describe it for sure. And so then, as you're looking to the future, do you see there being more activity in the Andean region as it relates to your portfolio outside of Peru or inside Peru? Do you, I mean, how much time do you split right now between Colombia and Peru and the rest of the region?
Well, I would say that right now I would be more focused. I would say right now 90-10, 90 being Peru, 10 being outside Peru, and probably that 10% just in Colombia. But I would say that maybe in the next 3 months it's going to be a little bit half and half between Peru and Colombia, because at NESsT we last year there was a new fund launched focused on not the early stage, but a little bit further. So companies with annual revenues of 150 to maybe a couple of $1 million that would require funding. Well, this is a loan fund, and would provide loans of between 100 and half $1 million. And this is also focused on the Andean region. We have currently we have two companies that have been accepted by the investment committee, and currently doing the contract writing, the signing. Both of them are here in Peru, but we are seeing a lot of activity also in Colombia. So that's why probably I would split half and half between Peru and Colombia.
And do you see more growth of homegrown investment firms, or do you see more foreign interest into the region?
So I would say a little bit of both, because in the impact investment side, I would say this is more a foreign movement or trend. But in the general investing area, I would say it's half and half. There are a lot of different family offices that have become much more active, or if it's here or in Colombia, for example. It's actually a really good surprise from here in Peru, that a lot of family offices are much more active. But I would say that there would still be a really big inflow from foreign funds, mainly because I see a lot of opportunities in sectors that are much more related to foreign clients, where if it's CPG companies working with biodiversity here in the region, but the main clients or that would end up also being really good investors would also be these international corporations that are investing in different countries. A specific example is AB InBev, the beer company.
Right.
They launched, I don't know how long ago, I think this is pretty recent, but they have their incubator or accelerator called SetX Ventures, which are focused on drinks, where if it's also like artisanal breweries.
Yeah.
They in their own accelerator office in New York, I think they have their own brewery also, but they are also developing other drinks, kombucha, different other products. And I think that there's also a big opportunity for those types of initiatives to be developed in countries like Peru or Colombia, Brazil, that have a lot of biodiversity and a lot of products that are being tried and tested on medicinal characteristics, or if they're healthier. Within my work at NEST, I've come into products like ungurawi, which is a specific fruit that grows in the jungle of Peru, which is very similar to the acai. And because of the antioxidants and certain other components, it's really healthy for people to consume it. Acai, there's a big trend on acai in the US, in Europe, and the tests for the ungurawi are actually showing that it's even more beneficial than the acai. So I think that there's also going to be a big trend there, hopefully with all the different process and applying to the different stages of entering these markets. I think it's going to be a good opportunity, and this doesn't only grow here in Peru. I think there's an opportunity for other countries, and examples like that are things that I feel really motivated that it's not only going to be the investors here, but also foreign. And with that foreign movement, I think it's going to attract even more investors from local investors.
Yeah, this kind of virtuous cycle almost. Huh? So Uruguay is going to be the new acai. Is basically
So it's called ungurawi.
Ungurawi?
Well, I'll send you the actual how it's spelled, but it's a weird name. Yeah.
Is that Quechua?
I would say that no. So maybe maybe Awahun. So this is in the jungles.
The dialect.
It's one of the dialects from the communities in the jungles.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because clearly I've never heard of it because I can't even pronounce it.
It's a tough word. Yeah.
As we draw to a close, I would like to give you the opportunity to talk about anything I haven't asked you about, and that can range from you or NESsT or Lima, Peru, or if you'd like to share, for example, the best advice you'd ever received. It's completely open-ended.
Well, those open-ended words are the worst, and the best also, because it's tough to actually point in one direction. I would say that I would like to take advantage of this time to talk about Peru and in general. Well, as a
Please do.
country, there is, like we've mentioned around this interview, there are a lot of different complexities between the politics, also a social instability, social unrest, which has happened mainly because of really big growth rates in the past couple of years, maybe in the past 10 to 15 years. Not only in Peru, but also in the region.
Mhm.
But that growth hasn't really come along with an equal growth for everyone. So that's the main, I would say, the main disadvantage now. And we as NEST, we also feel it because we see that there are a lot of different initiatives supporting, stopping to support Latin America, because of, the economics say Latin America is growing a lot, it has improved a lot, but the reality is that given that this big level of inequality is actually making the support even lower, because the support from foreign institutions would leave,
Mhm.
and the order in the same countries is not really ordered. So I would say that a lot of different supports from different organizations are still required and needed. But it's one of the things that we're actually working on right now, trying to make this change. And also that's why we've developed this new fund, so that we support early stages. We'll want to see those early stages going to a next stage, and also getting the support and funding for those next stages. After that, there are some other organizations that can support them in the following stages. But I think that there's still a really big gap in this kind of missing middle, here in general in the region, considering cases Colombia and Peru. So I would say that it's an amazing place to visit. Or if it's Peru or Colombia, you have a really big diversity of places. In Peru, you have the beach part, the coastal area, the Andes, and the jungle. So you can, in, I don't know, 2 weeks, maybe a whole month, you can actually have really different experiences here.
Yeah, and of course, have access to a variety of cuisines as well.
Yeah, that too. That too.
Okay, well, Javier, I think on that note, thanks very much for the time you took for the interview. I really liked how you were able to identify a gap, and then you went straight for your MBA to get the skills to help fill that gap here in Peru. Definitely looking forward to your growth with NEST and the fund, and also as you continue to make an impact in the region.
Hopefully I can be of help and impact. And you're very welcome to come and visit anytime you want.
Thank you. Until next time, take care.
Thank you.
I'm keenly interested in impact investing and social enterprises, so it was an absolute joy to speak with Javier about these and other relevant topics that I love learning about. Thank you, Javier. I hope you'll join me next week when we sit down with the co-founder and CEO of a fitness-oriented startup that is pioneering a new type of membership in Peru. Thank you for listening.